Hello everyone, I am Grand Royson. Welcome to new video, Light Novel Volume 4, Summary. Suzune asks Kiyotaka on why he didn't stop Koenji's act as it is his responsibility as a roommate. Kiyotaka says it's no use and tells Suzune to concentrate on their own groups. Suzune is determined not to fall behind her opponents in her group. Kiyotaka wants to ask Suzune about Karuizawa. Suzune says she has no interest in her and he should ask Hirata instead, but Kiyotaka wants to avoid that as he has already passed on his chance of having lunch with her before the test. Suzune asks if he thinks she is the VIP and Kiyotaka says he is more worried about her behavior. Suzune thinks it's a waste of time but Kiyotaka tells her on how there's a difference between a person's outer and inner selves. Suzune is still not entirely convinced and asks about Karuizawa's good points. Kiyotaka says she has the ability to assume control and take the initiative. Suzune wonders if Kiyotaka wants to make her an ally, to which Kiyotaka responds he has to think about that. Ryūen approaches them and asks Suzune whether she has decided on how to find the VIP. Suzune says she has no intention of telling him. Ryūen smirks and tells her he has started to discover the VIP's identity but Suzune doesn't believe it, stating he has no support like Katsuragi and Ichino's to get information. Ryūen says that making friends and gathering information is two different matters. He has already got the fundamentals of this exam and Class C will win overwhelmingly depends on how things go. Ryūen says he only needs to find which class the VIP belongs to, then analyze their group. He also reveals that he is using a brute force method by checking his classmates' emails to make sure they can't lie to him. Suzune argues that it's against the rules and he would be expelled, but Ryūen says that's not a problem. Suzune thinks he hasn't got the answer yet as he would have already sent a mail to the school. She also asks his thoughts on the monkey group's test that ended the day before, but he says he doesn't care about it and leaves. After Ryūen has left, Kiyotaka and Suzune find a phone set to record audio under the chair. They then start talking in a way to not leave any suspicion, with Suzune telling Kiyotaka to find the VIP in his group and Kiyotaka saying he will try his best. Suzune then leaves while Kiyotaka heads back to his room. Kiyotaka finds Yukimura alone in the room, who seems to be frustrated. He bemoans that they are stuck with Karuizawa and Sotomura in the group and the Dragon Group has the most excellent students assigned to it. Yukimura then asks Kiyotaka whether he's the VIP. Kiyotaka replies he isn't and asks Yukimura the same. Yukimura confirms he's also not the VIP, and neither is Sotomura. Yukimura also asked Karuizawa who denied being the VIP, but he is inclined to doubt her words. In the afternoon, Kiyotaka goes to the rabbit group's room, 10 minutes early. Karuizawa arrives right after him and starts fiddling her phone. After calling a friend, she speaks to Kiyotaka and asks if he is the VIP student. Kiyotaka denies but then surprised when she doesn't double-check and easily trusts his words. However, he brushes it off as his goal in this test is to ascertain whether she is useful to him or not. As all the members have shown up, Class A take their distance as usual. Karuizawa stands up and joins them, sitting next to Machida, who then assures to help her if anything happens. Ichino's brings out a deck of cards and invites the group to play cards together. The other Class B students and Sotomura agree to participate, with Kiyotaka also decides to join as they have nothing else to do at the moment. Kiyotaka notes that Ichino's is using this to observe the group's behavior, including his. They keep playing cards for the rest of the meeting time. The hour passes and the group meeting ends. Ichino's says that she'll be going to confront Katsuragi on Class A's strategy. Kiyotaka takes the chance and asks to come along with her, as Suzune is in the same group as Katsuragi. Ichino's and Kiyotaka arrive at Dragon Group's room and waits for 10 minutes until the door finally opens. Katsuragi notices Ichino's, who wants to talk with him. Ichino's asks Katsuragi to reconsider his strategy, but Katsuragi refuses, stating that his strategy is made to protect his class. Ichino's tries to convince him to no avail. Katsuragi tells her that she can't change his mind and she would do the same if she's in class A. Ichinos accepts his response, and Katsuragi leaves. Kiyotaka asks Ichinos if she's going to wait for Kanzaki. Ichinos tells him that she also wants to ask Suzune something so they can wait together. After nearly 30 minutes, some other students in the group come out, including Kushida. Kushida is surprised to see Kiyotaka and Ichinos and tell them that Kanzaki and Suzune are still talking with Ryūen inside. She then opens the door and lets them in. Ryūen greets Ichinos and gives her a proposal to crush Class A. He claims that he's already known all the VIP students in Class C and wants the three classes to share information on all the VIPs so they can go after Class A. Suzune rejects the idea in fear of betrayal, specifically from Class C. Ichinos also disagrees as she feels there's too much risk. Ryūen says that he and Ichinos can make it work, as he rules his class while Ichinos is very popular within her class. Ichinos still refuses to ally with him as her classmates were hurt by his actions in the past. Ryūen, not disappointed, gets up and leaves the room. Kushida also follows as her friends are calling her. Ichinos, Kanzaki, Suzune and Kiyotaka then talk about Ryūen, their alliance and Katsuragi's strategy. Suzune leaves after that, while Ichinos asks Kiyotaka to accompany her. Ichinos asks Kiyotaka for cooperation between the two classes. She wants to figure out the non-VIP students to narrow down the list, therefore telling him that she is not the VIP. Kiyotaka is surprised she is honest about it, with Ichinos replying that she likes to be honest as much as possible and wants her class to win fair and square. Kiyotaka then tells her that he and Yukimura are not the VIP but he doesn't know about Sotomura and Karuizawa, as he still can't be certain that they aren't. Ichinos calls her classmate Hamaguchi over and fills him in on the situation. Hamaguchi reveals that he is also not the VIP. The next group meeting, before the discussion time starts, the Class C girls ask Machida to come to play with them after the meeting. Karuizawa then arrives and tells them to give back her seat. Manabe provokes Karuizawa by saying she is talking to Machida and tell him to choose. Karuizawa grabs Machida's hand and tells him that she won't go out with him if he chooses Manabe. Kiyotaka is surprised that she can say that while being Hirata's girlfriend. Machida then asks Manabe to move, leaving her annoyed. Kiyotaka notes that Karuizawa has been attaching herself to Hirata and Machida so that she can gain control and influence within her class and the group. Kiyotaka wonders about the reason for her actions, whether it is for a sense of superiority, self-satisfaction, or the spotlight. Ichinos proposes to play cards again and they start playing until the meeting time is over, similar to the last time. Karuizawa, after exchanging contact information with Machida, exits the room. The Class C girls, Manabe and her two friends, then make their way out. Yukimura points out a weird vibe from the three. While Sotomura can't notice anything, Kiyotaka thinks he is correct. Yukimura and Kiyotaka see them following Karuizawa, who is now alone by herself, and quietly chase after them. Kiyotaka hears a sound of the door leading to the emergency stairs slamming shut. He quietly opens it and hears the three girls confronting Karuizawa. Karuizawa still feigns ignorance when being asked about their friend, Rika. However, she quickly tells them that she accidentally bumped into Rika when the girls try to call her but refuse to apologize and say that their friend is in the wrong. Losing their patience, the three girls begin to use physical threats on Karuizawa. Yukimura tries to open the door but Kiyotaka stops him. As Karuizawa starts having trouble breathing and holding her head, Manabe then grabs her hair and yanks her head up, threatening to cut up her face. Karuizawa is trembled and becomes unable to move. Yukimura is unable to hold it and opens the door to intervene. Kiyotaka also steps in and tells the girls that a teacher has just passed by so they should better leave. The Class C girls then threaten Karuizawa for the last time before leaving. Yukimura asks Karuizawa if she is okay, but she slaps his hand away and tells him to leave her alone. She then angrily leaves the place, slamming the door shut. Yukimura is overwhelmed and leaves after seemingly exhausted. Kiyotaka believes that there is another reason for Karuizawa's terrifying appearance, other than being threatened. During midnight, Kiyotaka meets Chabashira at the pool for a consultation. Kiyotaka asks if there are exceptions that cannot be bought with points. Chabashira confirms and says that he can't request to buy the life of a student or teacher as an example. Their conversation gets interrupted as Hashinomiya appears. Kiyotaka thinks it's no coincidence and Hashinomiya has probably followed Chabashira to their place. Hashinomiya greets Chabashira and Kiyotaka, then approaches him and starts teasing him while Chabashira says she is in the way and drags her off. Hashinomiya asks Chabashira about their meeting. Chabashira responds that she is simply consulting her student and tells Hashinomiya that she'll head back soon. Kiyotaka then continues and asks Chabashira on the most expensive thing to be bought with points in the past. Chabashira says that it was when someone wanted to change the school rules. It also needs to be realistic, for example changing the class time in order to avoid being late. Chabashira asks if he's dissatisfied with her answer, but Kiyotaka says that he can understand the school system and how to use points better with that. Chabashira mentions that he could have sent a mail to her for that question without having to meet, but Kiyotaka says that he doesn't want to leave a record and will ask her for a favor soon. At 2 a.m. in the midnight, after noticing Hirata has woken up and is going to leave the room, Kiyotaka follows and meets him in the hallway. Kiyotaka says he thought Hirata would leave during the night, as Karuizawa has contacted him. Hirata asks if he knows something, and Kiyotaka simply says he's in the same group with Karuizawa so he understands the situation. He also mentions that Suzune asked him to report on anything that happens in the rabbit group and keep an eye on Hirata. Kiyotaka then asks Hirata to tell him everything about Karuizawa. Hirata doesn't know what to tell him as he has to consider Karuizawa's feelings, then warns Kiyotaka that the information he's about to tell him is extremely sensitive and that Karuizawa might refuse to talk. The meeting is in a lounge area near the second floor. Karuizawa is surprised and angered that Kiyotaka is there, but Hirata tells her that he brings him along since he seems to understand the situation. Hirata then talks about Karuizawa's encounter with the Class C girls, with Kiyotaka confirming that he also saw it. Karuizawa has asked Hirata to take revenge on the girls, but Hirata refuses and wants to resolve things with them peacefully. Karuizawa insists that it's not possible, but Hirata replies that he can't just hurt someone else to help her. Karuizawa shouts that he's a liar since he said he would protect her. Hirata stands up and says that he's told her from the start, that they are not actually boyfriend and girlfriend and he won't fight a war for her. Hirata tells her that he intends to speak with Manabe and her friends in the morning and will tell them that Karuizawa will apologize. Karuizawa still refuses and Hirata says he can't help her if that's the case. Hirata then asks Kiyotaka for ideas, but Karuizawa angrily declares that she doesn't need help and their relationship is over before abandons them and leaves. Kiyotaka mentions that Hirata is everyone's ally, not just a bridge to connect people. Hirata says that his priority changes depend on the situation and Kiyotaka is far more capable than what everyone thinks. Kiyotaka asks about Hirata's fake relationship with Karuizawa, pointing out that they've been dating for almost 4 months but their relationship hadn't progressed much. Kiyotaka notes that Karuizawa's popularity had soared after going out with Hirata, and he was playing the boyfriend role to help to raise her status. Kiyotaka thinks that there's still more to it, as Hirata had easily accepted her request and she couldn't simply just use Machida to increase her influence. He then concludes that she wanted to protect herself. Hirata confirms and tells Kiyotaka that he is like a totally different person than before. Kiyotaka says that he is only following Suzune's advice. Hirata then reveals that Karuizawa was viciously bullied in elementary and junior high years and that she was just desperately trying to act tough and not showing her real personality. Kiyotaka asks for his reason to accept her request. Hirata then tells about his past, where he was still a nobody that didn't stand out much. He had a childhood friend named Sugimura, who was also his neighbor and classmate throughout his elementary years. At junior high school, they were put in separate classes. At first, they still walked to school together, but it gradually became less. While Hirata started to hang out with his new friends in his class, Suzumura was getting bullied. He had sent SOS many times to Hirata, but as he cared more about his new friends, Hirata didn't take them seriously and didn't think too much about it. By second year, they reunited, but Suzumura's spirit had shattered. Hirata was afraid he would become the next target and his new school life would be destroyed, so he didn't do anything to stop the bullying. He thought that the bullying would just stop someday or someone else would help Suzumura. One day, after returning from soccer practice, Hirata saw Suzumura in the classroom. Suzumura then jumped out of the window and was declared brain dead afterwards. Hirata realized that his selfishness had helped driving a close friend to his death. He wanted to atone by saving others. At the very least, he wants to save the people close to him. Kiyotaka says he can't save both Karuizawa and Manabe. Hirata understands that and says it's probably the reason why Kiyotaka is also there with him at the moment. Hirata asks Kiyotaka and Suzune to keep this story confidential. Kiyotaka then asks Hirata for a favor and hands him a piece of paper. Hirata accepts his request and tells Kiyotaka that he knows the identity of the last VIP student from Class D. The next day, Kiyotaka goes to meet Eri who called for him. The cow group's test has also ended and Eri says that she's not the VIP but she doesn't know about the others. Kiyotaka asks her about Class A students' actions in her group and Eri confirms that they have not talked at all. Kiyotaka tells Eri to let him know if there's anything else and they part ways. Kiyotaka then proceeds down to the lowest level on the ship, to an area prohibited from students but isn't locked, where generally no one appears and phones have almost no reception. After observing, Kiyotaka then returns to the upper deck and make a call to Hirata. He then receives a message from Hirata, saying he's promised to meet Karuizawa at 4 p.m. and sends Kiyotaka information about Manabe. Kiyotaka then starts messaging anonymously to Manabe. He tells her that he is a classmate who also hates Karuizawa and wants to work together to get an act of revenge on her. Manabe is initially suspicious but eventually follows and asks about the plan. Kiyotaka sends her the map of the ship's lowest level and says that he will call Karuizawa there so Manabe can settle things with her. Kiyotaka also has another plan prepared in case he failed to convince Manabe through chat, by blackmailing her with the pictures he took when she and her friends confronted Karuizawa at the emergency stairwell, but the risks were high and he wanted to avoid drawing attention as much as possible. Karuizawa arrives early at the meeting point where she is supposed to meet Hirata. At 4 o'clock, Manabe and her friends also come to the place, including Rika. Karuizawa notices them and starts trembling. Manabe tells Karuizawa to meet Rika and apologize to her. Karuizawa still insists that she didn't do anything wrong, but Manabe threatens her and tells her that she knew about Karuizawa being bullied. Kiyotaka has told Manabe in the chat that Karuizawa was bullied since childhood. Karuizawa weakly denies and tries to escape, but Manabe grabs her hair and slams her to the wall. Manabe then starts beating Karuizawa up, even pressing Rika to join in, while Karuizawa keeps pleading them to stop and collapses in fear. Kiyotaka quietly leaves the scene and closes the door. After Manabe and her friends have left, Kiyotaka enters and calls Karuizawa, who is still cowering on the ground. As she didn't expect to be there, Karuizawa becomes panicked. After a while, Kiyotaka asks if she's calmed down. Karuizawa wipes her tears and asks about Hirata. Kiyotaka says he's there in his place since a teacher called Hirata away and Kiyotaka just happened to be with him in that time. Karuizawa says that Manabe and her friends caused the scene and warns him not to tell anyone about it. She also suggests him to get back at them since they're girls. Kiyotaka refuses as it would only escalate the situation further. Karuizawa mutters that Manabe and her friends would continue doing awful things to her. Kiyotaka tells her he understands that she wants to prevent it since it would be terrible if things went back like in the old days. Karuizawa asks what he is talking about. Kiyotaka pins her against the wall and mentions how Manabe and her friends beat her up and the fact that she was a victim of bullying. Karuizawa asks if he heard it from Hirata, and Kiyotaka replies that he isn't of any use to her in a situation like this. Kiyotaka then threatens to expose her if she doesn't do as he says. Karuizawa screams and asks if he's after her body. Kiyotaka runs his fingertips across her thighs. Karuizawa tries to escape but Kiyotaka threatens her not to run or he'll tell everyone in the school about her. Kiyotaka then tells her to spread her legs and pretends to play with his belt buckle. He is interested in how far she would go instead of her body and concludes that she has become a perfect tool for him. Karuizawa vents her anger and mentions it's not the first time she's succumbed to forces. She gives a thin smile and stares at Kiyotaka, saying she couldn't do anything else and could only take all the bullying. As she lifts her skirt, Kiyotaka grabs her wrists and asks what happened to her. Karuizawa tells him about her punishments that happened countless times, with any kind of bullying one can imagine. Kiyotaka thinks she is still hiding something and presses on. Noticing her gaze at her left waist, he grabs her uniform and pulls it up, which reveals a deep scar caused by a sharp blade. Kiyotaka sees the darkness in her eyes that overlaps with his and decides that he needs to release her from the shackles of her past. He promises to protect her from bullying from now on, claiming he is much more reliable than Hirata or Machida. He then shows her his phone that has a photo of her being assaulted by Manabe and her group, saying he can stop them with it. He wants her to cooperate and assist him in the future, doing whatever he needs. As Class D lacks unity, if she can control the girls, the situation will improve and they can be able to overtake Class A. He then tells her they first need to guide their group to victory in this exam. Karuizawa wonders how Kiyotaka says that she can help since she is the VIP student. If you like this video, please like, subscribe and share. For more, thanks you all, meet you in another video.